All right, so let's talk about the existing conditions. These are conditions that exist at the job site that may need to be remediated, and sometimes it includes also items that are on the site that needs to be demolished. So in this category we have surveys. That's important. That's almost always in the scope of work, although sometimes the owner is the one who provides that. But this also helps you as a checklist. You know, have we done the survey? Do we have it? Have we looked at the existing conditions and make an assessment? Is there any environmental problems or concerns? Existing materials that may be there, hazardous materials. You know, then we go at the subsurface investigations for the soil and the conditions under the surface. Demolition of existing structures. If there's anything that we need to move, equipment that needs to be salvaged or removed. Sometimes you need to protect areas on the existing job site, especially if you're doing some remodelation or you're working on a site that is already active. We're going to see a little bit of that in our course project, and we'll talk about that when we go the drawings. Contaminated site materials, water remediation, facility remediation, all of these are included in existing conditions. So basically what you will do is you will check if you have them, if you have to pay for them, you know, how much it's going to cost. And like we did before with the temporary facilities, is basically, you know, go into a table and find out what is the unit cost, what is the unit of measure, do the measurement on the site, and then come up with a cost. And that's going to be true for every cost that we estimate. Yeah, so I basically listed those items. It's just figure out how much it is and come on. Some job sites have different number of work days per month. You know, you can figure out that during rainy season there may be less days available to work. During hurricane seasons, you may have to prepare for shutting down the job site. So all of those things you need to take into consideration when doing your estimate. Here is a table that shows, you know, how many work days you may have. Sometimes they start working 24 hours a day, or they do, you know, 10 hours. So you'll figure out how many hours you have in order to make your project completed on time. We are more concerned about the cost than with the schedule. So what we want to do is basically identify how many hours the workers need in order to complete the work that they're doing. We will be using RSMeans data, so they have certain productivity associated with the crews. That productivity may change in real life. You may have workers that are faster or slower. You may have conditions at the site that may interfere the crews, or they have the materials located far away, so they have to travel, and then that productivity may be lower. But for our purposes, we will use the productivity of the RSMeans. Earthwork. In earthwork, we find this list of activities, you know, maintenance, site clearing. You may have to remove some trees. You may have to clean the site, level it up, you know, excavation and fill, grading. Depending on the conditions on the site, you may need to move earth a little bit from one side to another one, so you cut where you have too much and you fill the voids, so make it sort of a level site. If you're working in a mountain type of conditions, you may have to do roads and terraces. So you have your buildings or your structures in these terraces and have roads that access the different elevations. So you need to consider what methods are going to be used to do the earthwork. Oftentimes, you know, you have a front loader, you may have a a backhoe, if you need to do some tree removings, you may have different type of machinery that it's related to the work that you're going to do. Then exterior improvements, maintenance of the exterior. This kind of comes late. And this is paving, road surfacing, special improvements that you may have on the side. The only reason I have it here is because sometimes you need to have roads to access the job site, so you may want to do some of that pavings or some of that road work before you get started with the job site. But typically, these installation of plantings, the turf, the grasses, the plants, the site improvements are left to the very end of the project. We have utilities. These do come early. You need to bring in water, you need to bring in electricity, you need to have connections for your soil water, storm, utility drainage, sub-drainage, natural gas if you have it, electric distribution, all of those connections needs to be made ahead of time because they usually require trenching. So you need to open a trench on the side, bring in the utilities to the point where there's going to be distributed, then you cover them up, and then you build on top of that. So typically you want to think about the project in the order that it's executed. So that's why I presented the divisions in this order. If you see, we jump from division 2 to division 31 because division 2 is existing conditions. So you look at what is right there in that moment, and then division 31 starts with earthwork. So you need to move your earthwork around. You need to give some means to get to the job site, and then bring in the utilities that are going to feed your project. So that's kind of the way it will be executed. That's the way that we will do our estimate. Then in utilities, we have the site cleaning, earthwork, shoring. Shoring is the process of holding up the walls of a trench to prevent cave-ins. Imagine if you're digging, you have your surface over here, and you're digging to locate utility pipes, right? These walls over here may tend to collapse. So depending on the type of soil that you have, you may be required to add shoring, which is some sort of a process to hold those walls so that to prevent them from collapsing. Then you have foundations. You may have special conditions for tunneling and mining. This we won't see those, but depending on what work you have to do, may be part of it. Then there will be drawings showing the different elevations on the site. So you may have to cut on some areas and fill in other ones. Prepare a plan for site access. How is the roads going to be laid out? If you're going to have temporary road access inside the job site, paving, sewer, and drainage. All of these become part of that initial work. Here's a picture on a job site that I was working at, and this is in Venezuela. So we had, different. It was a very high mountain, and we had this front loader pushing the earth down to the end, creating different terraces, and then we were building on those terraces. Here's a picture of the same area, but now with the road. So you can see that that is a very equipment-intensive operation. So you need to pay for the equipment. If it's not yours, you have the renting, you have the fuel, you have the operator, you have maintenance. All of those costs are associated with the earth move. Basically what you will do is you estimate the volume of earth that needs to be moved, look at the productivity of the equipment, how many cubic feet or cubic yards can be moved on a day, and then that tells you for how long you need to work. Estimate your cost by multiplying by the unit cost times the number of the volumetric measure of your earth move, and then you get the total cost. So you estimate the volume of the excavation. This is true for if you're moving earth horizontally, or if you're excavating, it's the same thing. Look at the equipment that it's required. Sometimes, and I didn't mention this, you have transportation costs. You have to bring the equipment to the site, and then you have to take it away when you're done. So those transportation costs must be included over there. Trenching for the different utilities. Analyze, different type of soils may require different techniques in the shoring. Sometimes you can do what's called the angle of repose. You can cut the soil at a certain angle, right, to prevent these walls from collapsing inside. So you have that additional work to remove this area, prevent that from collapsing, and then you have to backfill when you're done. So those are different considerations that you need to take when doing earthwork. Need to estimate labor, material, equipment, subcontractor, like we've done before. So in labor, you have the operator. Materials, you have very little materials, because what you're doing is you're moving this earth. We're not putting anything in, except if you have shoring. In that case, you do have some materials that needs to be put in place to hold the sides of the excavation. Equipment is very important, including fuel, operator, maintenance, and so on. And sometimes people, depending on the situation, they will just hire a subcontractor that will do that work. So then all those costs are into your subcontractor specifications of responsibility. And labor, you have to figure out the equipment operator, estimate the times, rates, the cost. There is sometimes a lot of people working in one operation, Here's a picture of some shoring systems. Here we can see they're bringing in these pipelines to a certain area of the building. So the soil seems to be very loose. They're going quite deep. This looks to be like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 feet or so. So to prevent these walls, this earth to collapse inside the working area, they put this shoring. Right, so they create a bank where they put all the piping, and then they will remove the shoring and backfill the area. So that's what I'm talking about with this picture over here. You may be required to remove existing structures, install dewatering, piping, and then go with the foundations. Here, this is a picture that shows, you may have a site with different elevations. Some sections are low, other sections are high. So if you want to make these flat, you may take some of that earth and put it where you have the voids. So then compact it and make it even. Like this picture here, you may have, this may be your profile, and then some of it has to be filled in, some of it has to be cut out. That's a cost associated with doing the earthwork. Here's a picture of another type of equipment. Here you have a front loader and a backhoe on the same equipment. This is some, some of the equipment that you may be seeing in the job site. Industrial loaders, compactors, forest machine. If you have a heavy, a wooden area that needs to be cleared out, so you will use the type of equipment that fits the operation that you need to do. Different soils have different water content, different rigidity. So where sometimes you can use a simple machine, a backhoe, to do excavation. In other circumstances, you may find hard rock, and then you may need to use a more sophisticated equipment. So those things have to be taken into consideration. We talked about the angle of repose. There is also requirements for safety. People need to be doing their work on a safe environment. They have to be working in such a way that will not be getting harmed. So you need to consider things like providing hard hats, safety vests, eye protection, ear protection, especially if you're doing heavy demolition. You need to provide protection for people to prevent getting ear damage and so on. You probably have not seen anything about safety yet, but OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and they are the ones that guide the regulation for construction from the safety standpoint. So, later on you will get a course in safety, which I teach, by the way, and then we'll talk about all those requirements. Let's see here. Here's a video that shows the danger of these trenchings.
Huh? Who's in charge today? How you doing? I'm in the state of Oregon, OSHA. Looks like you got a little bit of a shoring problem going on.
That's it. That's where it's going right now.
Well, he can't be down there.
Okay.
How are you going to get him out?
Shoring or what? Jim, just unhook that thing. Sorry. Watch it.
You want to see why he can't be down there? That's why he can't be down there.
This happened to be the inspector right there at that time, But you can see that's what it means, the walls of the excavation collapse, and it can trap somebody in there. So you need to provide some sort of protection against those cave-ins. These are sections taken from OSHA regarding the safety that you need to do for underground utilities. Utilities companies should be contacted to find out where are your utility sites. You cannot just dig and hope that you don't hit anything. You need to really make sure that the existence of utilities are clearly marked. Another variable to consider is shrinkage and swelling. This is when you have earth on. Sorry, this is hard to see here. You have earth on your site. If you excavate that earth, the volume increases because now you have more air in the mixture, and then the volume tends to be higher. If you take earth and to fill a void, then when you do the compaction, then that volume shrinks. So you need to calculate, take these factors into estimate when you're doing excavation and especially transportation. If you need to take this out of your job site, you need to realize that this material in the bank is going to be different in volume when you have it outside. So you may need more trucks than you initially estimated. Here are some swell factors depending on the material, gravel, if it's dry or wet, clay and earth, you know, they go 10%, 20%. So that's an increase in the volume. We normally use some of these geometrical figures to figure out the volume that we need to excavate in different areas. So, you know, there you got the equations. We will be using those to figure out the volume to be excavated. There are different ways to estimate the volume to be excavated. Some of those are geometric, so you figure out what is the geometric shape of the areas that you need to excavate. Other ones are average. Probably the easiest one is the average method, where you estimate the area on the footing, they estimate the area on the top, and do an average to figure out how much earth you're removing.